Okay, I am back. Obviously, this background is not very pretty, but the lighting is definitely better right here, so I am really sorry about that. I'm actually getting a new little recording area set up upstairs in my pink attic, so I'm really excited about that. I think it'll be super cute when it's all said and done. So I was talking about the misconceptions of feminism and kind of the differences between them. So a big thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is that there is so much that is different about feminism. And there's so many different sects of it, different beliefs within it. It's not just one big blanket term that covers everything. So a big thing that is different between liberal feminism and radical feminism is that liberal feminism is pretty mainstream, pretty much what most modern feminists today believe that you'll hear about a lot on social media. And these feminists believe in choice, and they say as long as a woman makes a choice freely, then then it's a feminist choice. So if you decide that you want to stay at home with your kids, that's a feminist choice. If you decide you don't want kids, that's also a feminist choice. If you decide that you want to dress provocatively, that's a feminist choice. If that's your decision, is what I'm saying. So you get the point. And if you decide that you want to dress conservatively, or if you wear a burqa because that's what your religious beliefs dictate, liberal feminism says that that is all up to you, and as long as you are freely making those choices, there's nothing wrong with that. Radical feminism is where it causes a little more controversy, but radical feminism says women can't freely make these choices in our society right now because our choices aren't made in a vacuum. So in a society that is patriarchal, that tells women that you are valued more if you dress this way, or if you act this way, or if you're a mother, then you can't just make those decisions on your own. Making them at all is you're making that decision because the patriarchy wants you to. So they say that that women shouldn't shave, that women shouldn't wear makeup, that women should not be stay-at-home moms, because those are all decisions that the patriarchy wants you to make. And in making those decisions, even if that's what you want, you only want that because that's what society is telling you that you want. That's what radical feminism says. And it's a little more complex than that, but that's where a lot of controversy comes from. A lot of people that disagree with feminism disagree with that theory. And there's definitely some merit to it. I mean, it's not, of course, when women want to wear long makeup and scandalous clothes, or long hair and makeup, of course, I'm gonna start over. So, of course, there's some merit to that, right? Obviously, if you enjoy wearing makeup and long hair and dressing provocatively, I mean, men are going to be pretty happy about that, right? So are you making that choice freely on your own will, or are you doing that because you've been raised in the society that tells you that is how you're supposed to be? So it definitely warrants a conversation, but it also kind of turns some people off from feminism because it makes them feel like that's kind of where this whole idea that women hate femininity comes from, and that's not true. It's just that some feminists view it as a bit of a cage that women have been forced into, which is certainly fair, I would think, but there's a lot of different beliefs to that. So what I want to talk about is what I think, in America at least, the three biggest things that facing women today, or what we need to be able to do to achieve equality in a society where women are still fighting for that. And again, like I said, this is in America, this is a first world country. Obviously, all over the world, women face some really serious problems such as forced marriage, forced prostitution, rape, female genital mutilation. Those are all very serious problems that a lot of us are very fortunate not to know anything about. But they certainly exist, and they need to be discussed, and they need to be fought just as heavily as any other social justice fight that we're fighting at the moment. But here in America, or other first world countries, feminism, I think, should have three main goals, and that's what I want to talk to you guys about. So first of all, women need to have economic freedom. Secondly, we need to discuss sexualization, rape, sexual assault, sexual objectification. All of that fits into that category there. And then we also need to discuss the right to choose, abortion, because I keep dropping everything. women having autonomy, complete autonomy over their bodies is, that's the only way. We have to have that. There's no condition to that. Women have to have that in order to be free and equal in any society at all. So let us start with what I consider to be a fun topic, which is economic freedom. So this is something that has been used to oppress women and other, how do I want to say that? Women and, so like I was saying, let's talk about economic freedom, which is something that has been used to oppress women and other marginalized communities forever. So this is a big reason why women were not allowed to own property or to open a bank account, was because if you take away someone's economic freedom, you take away their autonomy, their liberation. And this is also a tactic that a lot of abusive people in relationships use to keep their keep the person they are abusing in line, is they make sure that they don't have any economic freedom. They don't let them have a job, they don't let them control any money, they have to ask for any money that they do have, and this keeps someone from being able to run away or to get help or to leave, to live on their own, because if you're completely economically dependent on somebody, whether that's one other person or a government or a society, then that takes away a big chunk of your freedom right there, as a lot of us know. And so a big thing that people will argue is say, well, women, that was a long time ago that women weren't allowed to own property or have a bank account. And that's not really true. That's pretty recent history. It wasn't until, say, until the 1960s that women were able to open a bank account. And that is, that's relatively very, very recent. And the thing is that when you have history that recent of such strong oppression, I mean, it's only been 100 years since women have had the right to vote, that doesn't just go away overnight. And this is where a really interesting social topic or political science topic comes in, is we talk about, in political science they call it de facto versus de jure segregation or oppression. So de jure is where it is written into the law. So we saw this with slavery or Jim Crow when it comes to black people. And we saw this with women when the right to vote was outlawed or when we weren't allowed to own property. That's de jure oppression. That is saying, the law is saying this is how things are, these people are oppressed because the law says so. And then the law changes, and right now, legally, for the most part, people of color, women, LGBT people are free and equal. But there is a lot more to society than just the law. There is de facto oppression, which is, despite what the law says, you have social mores or social consequences, social ideas that keep people oppressed. And this is arguably what a lot of people, political scientists, argue. This is stronger than de jure oppression, where if you have de facto oppression or de facto segregation, where you're keeping a certain marginalized community marginalized, keeping them oppressed, if you're doing that via social ideals rather than just clear-cut black and white law, that's stronger, that's harder to overcome. And that's what we have today with our segregated populations, with our marginalized populations. So women, people of color, immigrants, LGBT people, all of these classes of people are oppressed via de facto oppression, so by society rather than the actual law. And that's where it's kind of hard to argue, because so many people will come out and say, well, slavery doesn't exist anymore. You're protected under the law. The law says that women can do whatever they want and be free, but the law is very different from reality a lot of times. And what we're seeing with reality is that women are in fact not free and equal, and neither people of color or LGBT people. So a big example of this with women, we'll focus on women today, is economic freedom. So technically, women have the right to go work, they have the right to own property, they have the right to open a bank account, but not technically. Within society, the rules of society, there is a wage gap. It is harder for women to get jobs. They are less likely to be hired. They're less likely to get promoted. They're less likely to get a good salary or fight for a good salary. They're less likely to go to school and fight for high-paying jobs. These are all things that have to do with society rather than the actual law. Oh, this is quite dark. I forgot to clean my brush. Oh well, I think it looks pretty. So a big thing that you'll hear a lot is the wage gap, and that women make 74 cents on the dollar to men for the same jobs. And then a big counter argument that you hear to this is that women pick low-paying jobs, that women are not going and getting the same high-paying jobs as men, and that that's their own fault. And it's not quite as simple as that. And that's where we have a lot of argument with particularly conservatives, who I would also identify as the oppressors a lot of times. Older white men, conservatism goes hand in hand. Older white men are the oppressors typically. So it's a little bit of a different conversation, but so like I was saying, so a lot of times you'll hear people, they make these arguments against the wage gap and say, well, women are the ones doing this. So what we call that in political science is we say that women pick pink-collar jobs, so teaching, nursing, jobs that are not quite as high-paying as other jobs. Just a moment.